morning, everybody. We're at Park Inn by Radisson. It's a beautiful day, a little overcast, but beautiful nonetheless. And my guest today is Joy Doreen Bira. But before we even dive into our conversation, make sure you have My Dawa downloaded on your app, ladies and gentlemen, because it's an app that will save you time. It'll also save you money, and it'll save you the stress of having to worry about whether a product is the real deal or if it's counterfeit. In fact, at the end of the show, you're going to see a snippet of Ted Josiah sharing his experience with the app and how he didn't have to leave the comfort of his home on a Sunday and everything was brought to him. So if you don't already have the app, please make sure you download it on Google Play, or you can just head over to the browser on your laptop or device and type in www.mydawa.com. And there you have it, all these health products, wellness products, diapers, diaper creams, beauty products. They're just all going to be there, available to you and for you. And another thing that I really like about the space is that delivery is free within Nairobi, which, hey, look, who doesn't like free deliveries? Now, I am about to dive into Joy Doreen Bira's story. I'm about to ask her about journalism, how she got into it. I'm about to ask her about things that happened to her in 2016, the arrest, and how that affected her. We're also going to dive into other lighter stories like motherhood and some of the embarrassing things that have happened to her in front of TV, on live television. So don't go anywhere because this conversation is juicy. So, Doreen, can you tell me about your childhood?
My childhood was, what do I say, normal?
Okay.
But I come from a humble background.
Yeah.
My dad is a retired medic. My mom is a self-employed woman. My dad is now in his 70s, my mom now in her 60s. But I was born way back, 1986. Were you born then?
No, not
Okay.
quite. I was just 3 years shy of coming into the world.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just
wow.
3 years. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and I grew up in Uganda.
Yeah.
Went to school in Uganda as well. And my childhood, I would say, was just, I was a jolly good child, you
Right.
know. Yeah, I guess my name, a lot of times people thought my name resonated with my personality because I was called Joy. Yeah, so I mean, I was a happy child. We didn't have too much, but you know, we were happy with what we had at the time growing up. Yeah.
Okay, and how many siblings do you have?
I have, how do I put it? I have 3 half brothers.
Okay.
And then I have 4 other siblings on my side. So that makes us about 7 or 8.
A family of 8
Yes.
siblings.
Yes.
Plus, you know, your parents. Yeah.
Plus my parents, that would make us 10.
Yeah. Wow. Family.
Yeah.
And what was that like, being surrounded by, you know, like such a large family?
We actually didn't grow up with my half brothers,
Okay.
but you know, I have 3 brothers and 1 sister from my mom.
Okay.
So, you know, we grew up a very close family.
Yeah.
We were very tight amongst ourselves. And, you know, the fact that I only had 1 sister who is like 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
So I was possibly more on the boy side because she was a girly girl who just didn't want, you know, at the time to be associated with me because I think I was so young for her.
Okay.
But now when we grew older, you know, we got much, much closer. But we are like a very united 5
Family.
people. Yeah. Yeah.
So what were your interests in school? What did you study?
Which part?
So let's start with-
Lower school?
Let's do high school.
High school.
Yeah, because that's when I think you start to come into yourself and
Right, right.
find your interests. So
Yeah.
What were you
I was
interested in?
more, I think I was interested in physics.
Oh,
But the problem was for you to take physics, it had to go with chemistry.
okay.
And I was so bad at chemistry. I was so bad that I think the best grade I ever got in chemistry was probably like a 65 or something. Yeah,
Okay,
percent.
okay.
But with physics, I was so good. So I had to drop physics, and because I had to drop chemistry, I also had to drop physics. But I was pretty good with fine art as well. Geography, that was in high school. So in Uganda, the system is you do O levels and you do A levels before you go to the university.
Yeah.
So in my A levels, I did history, economics, geography, and fine art.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was more into the arts
Right.
and less into the sciences because, you know, my only one science subject I loved, I couldn't even take.
So I know that you did IT.
Yes.
Which was, I thought that was quite interesting in uni.
That's
How
the
did
whole
you
thing.
get into that?
Funny enough, when I applied for university courses, my first course, what I thought I really wanted to do was industrial art, industrial fine art, that is. And my second course was mass communication. My third course was information technology. Well, I had like 6 choices, but those were my first 3. And I thought, well, if I don't get... But what I really wanted to do at the university was mass communication. So I knew usually they'll probably skip the first, give me the second. But I never thought they would give me the third choice. So they skipped the first 2 and gave me information technology, which I thought was more a science course. Because I don't even know why I put it among my choices. It was not something I even thought of ever doing. But that's where my name landed. So when I read my name in the paper, I'm like, information technology, what am I going to do with it, you know? But my family was so excited. They're like, yeah, you know, you've been running away from the sciences, but then here they are. I'm like, wait, I've been doing arts throughout my A-levels. But yeah, that's how I ended up doing information technology for my undergrad.
Okay, and at which point did journalism start to call you?
My journalism, I think, started when I was much younger. I loved watching TV. I loved reading papers. I loved listening to radio, you know. So we grew up with that kind of content being poured in our faces. My dad would encourage us to take up painting competitions and things like that, and you know, encourage us to read the newspapers. And so I grew up with the interest, but I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. But in my Form 4 vacation, the Ugandan Form 4 vacation, I was about 16, and my dad thought I was being very idle. And so he said, why don't you find something to do? I'm like, what do I do? You know, I'm on vacation. I'm supposed to be resting. He said, no. Let me find something to do for you. So he took me to the local radio station in the village, like in my hometown. And he's like, well, just find something for her to do here. So he just had a bunch of friends at the radio station. And, well, they thought I spoke good English, and they gave me the news to read. And that's how I got onto radio. But funny enough, I was not being paid much. I think what I earned was less than my transport to that station. It was a little station, you know, deep in my hometown, but what I learned from it was the technical stuff about the station, you know, like how to operate a console and how to, you know, do the microphone thing. So I learned, my first experience was actually learning more of that, as in beyond those reading English news and stuff like that.
And isn't it interesting how a moment like that in, you know, such a tender space in your life can help shape what you want and either guide you further into that career or away from it?
It actually did point me in the right direction. And I thought, now that I'm older, I think young girls and boys should go through that kind of experience because it helps them to figure out exactly what they're good at. So for me, it actually laid the foundation for what I thought my interests were. And when I did my A-levels, I still had that same interest. And in my Form 6 vacation, I tried to do the same thing, but not quite. But then when I joined the university, alongside my information technology course, I was an evening student, so I had a lot of time, free time during the day, so I spent most of it in the mass communication faculty because I thought, well, I think I can learn a thing or two. And I think because of the time I spent there, there was a radio station within the campus. I was asked, so why don't you find something to do around here? But of course you weren't being paid for that because you're in university. But I think that actually did train my skills because I would meet all the professors for the journalism class and they would say, I think you're doing good here, you're doing good there, you're doing good here. So yeah.
I like how internship has played a big role, and it did play a big role in bringing you into your career path, one in high school and then as well in university. So at which point did you then, you know, finish your IT degree and think, I think I'm gonna leave this and jump into journalism?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, when I was just about to complete my first year in information technology, that's when I was called to do an audition for TV.
Okay.
And honestly, TV never crossed my mind ever. I had the interest for radio, not for TV.
How did they find you?
So a coursemate of mine from the IT class told me, hey, there's this rather TV station that I'm going to audition for.
Okay.
Do you want to give me a push? I'm like, oh yeah, giving you a push for TV. Yes, 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 yes. But he didn't even tell me, you know what, could you think about auditioning?
Okay.
So I was excited about giving him a push. He wanted to do a sports show.
Yeah.
So we went, and while he was doing the audition, I was waiting for him in the hallway. And so someone came and told me, so what are you doing here? Yeah, why don't you go up there and say your names? I'm like, say my names what?
Yeah.
and do what? You know, so I went up there, said my names, and they asked me, so what do you think about TV? I'm like, I don't have interest in TV. Like, I was very bland. I don't want interest in TV. But if there's something I could do, or if there's something I would want to watch, they asked, what would that be?
Yeah.
I said, I'm a student at the moment, and I hardly get to watch the news. So if I could watch the news during the day or in the morning, because I always miss it in the evening, then I think that would be good. I just want to know what's happening in the papers, like where the news is at and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
long story short, I think I was one of the few people who got accepted that day. I was just told, pick a piece of paper, leave your contact details, blah, blah, blah. And that's how That's how I got
into TV.
into
It's so funny
TV.
how the universe
Yes.
works. But what do you think? What is it about you that they saw? What do you think that they saw in you and they thought?
I don't know, because I think they had asked, I'm sure, because I was watching all the girls coming down from the stairs, you know, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of makeup, you know, that she's too overdressed, you know, I don't think I can do that.
Right.
But I think it was beyond, maybe it's something I said when I said I wanted to probably know what people are saying about what's making news.
Yeah.
Then it probably struck the idea of a morning show for them, because there had never been a morning show on Ugandan television. So the next day I was called and told, hey, would you be interested in a career on TV? And I was like, well, I'm idle. I'm just a merchandiser, you know. I was merchandising because I needed money to buy handouts for IT.
Okay.
So I felt like, well, I think I was more of a risk taker. I'm like, let me just try this thing and see where it takes me. I don't care if I earn any money or not. Let me just do it.
Wow.
But I think it came from the interest that I had from way back.
Yeah.
So I did that, and they trained me on the job, and they never told me that in 2 weeks' time you're going to be on air. So I have no presentation skills, no communication skills, well, save for the fact that I spoke good English and could express myself.
Great.
And then, you know, they trained me and said, so this is how you do it, this is how you read the news, this is how you know, we were trained. I wasn't the only one, but whoever it is that had gone through the auditions was trained. And then 2 weeks later, we're like, tomorrow you're going on the air. I'm like, what?
Wow. Okay, so then you then have this morning TV show, but then that's all in Uganda, and at some point you then find your way into Kenya. How did that transition come about?
So from the time I got onto TV in Uganda, I was doing a morning show. Then I did radio in Uganda as well for about 4 years for each of them. And then I think there was a time in Kenya, I'm not so sure, but I think there was a time in Kenya where it was like a transfer period for anchors. And I think that time it was either CCTV or one of these media stations that had shopped a bunch of anchors from KTN.
Okay.
So then I don't know where the thought or the idea came from of getting anchors from Uganda, but I guess I should say I'm just one of the favored people. I always have that kind of favor or something. So someone said, oh, by the way, I saw a news anchor during the elections. We'd had elections in Uganda in 2011. And they said, you know, so we saw this anchor and we thought maybe she would be good and stuff. So the HR contacted me. He was given my contact. I do not know by whom, but it must have been Mary Kilobi or something, one of the anchors who had already come to Kenya. And so they called me and said, would you be interested in a career in Kenya? I'm like, okay.
How old were you at the time?
I was 24.
24.
Yeah, maybe going on 25, I
Wow.
think. Yeah.
And did you have any doubts about it? Did you think about it?
I did have doubts because at that time as well, I had an offer from a Ghanaian TV station called TV3. It's a long story. I probably won't get into it right now because of time.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, so the distance between Ghana and Uganda, and Kenya and Uganda, because I was thinking, so how often will I have to visit home?
Right.
So of course I had to drop the Ghanaian offer and take up the Kenya offer, because I'm like, well, Kenya, I've been there, you know, I have friends there, a few relatives here and there, so I won't really be as lonely as I thought I would be. So I said, well, let me consider the Kenyan offer. So he's like, could you send me a video reel or something? We can watch some of your content. I did that. I put the CD on a bus, and it came through. I don't know if they ever got it. Yeah, and then about 2 weeks later, they're like, so would like to meet you in Kenya. Would like you to go through another audition before we can sign a contract. I actually thought this was a joke, because I'm like, this whole communication has been on phone, nothing like, well, I don't know, was Skype there by that time? I think it was, but you know, there was no real tangible evidence that that is actually happening. But then when they said, come, let's sign a contract. So I did my background check. I'm like, oh, so what's the pay like in Kenya? What's, you know, basic info. Alan Kasuja, who used to work with Capital, helped me quite a bit. He's like, so this is what it is, this is what it is. If you want to take this, take it. If they say no, then negotiate.
And just helped you with the negotiation.
Yeah, so I came, and long story short, I've been here since 2012.
Yeah, since 2012. Wow, 6 years. We have to take a quick break, but we'll be back with more of Doreen's story. Welcome back, everybody. I've been chatting to Joy Doreen Vera and asking about her journey into journalism. And before the break, she was explaining how, you know, she found herself in this space in front of TV without really calling for it. And during the break, I was just telling her, it feels like all these opportunities just sort of landed on your lap. Like you were just, you know, going about your day and they just appeared. But I don't for a second believe
That's
that it
what
was
it
that
looks
easy.
like.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. But I tell you what, there's nothing that comes easy. Yeah, well, you're given the opportunity. It's up to you to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks into my TV career, I just woke up and said, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm tired of waking up at 4 and being at work by 5 because I have to start a show by 6. And I'm like, you know what? This thing was just not meant for me because the first time I actually did the morning show,
This
and we
is in
went,
Uganda?
yes, in Uganda. And I was doing the paper review. I think I held the newspaper upside down because I was so tense, you know. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never even worn a suit before. Here I am in a suit. The makeup was like, I don't know, 6 layers. I'm like, gosh, I've been so used to my free lifestyle. The only thing I ever used to wear before was probably like a shade of lipstick or lip gloss or lip balm, you know. But now I was into this personality that I wasn't so used to, and I hadn't been professionally trained for that kind of a job. So I'm like, I have a lot to learn. Possibly this is not the right time for me. So I just woke up and said, you know what, I'm not going to work today. So they called me. I'm like, no, I'm not coming to work today because I don't think I can do this. And I also felt like there was a part of me that was being stolen away from me because I had never been in the limelight before. So this was all happening so fast. I was about 20 years old and I didn't even know, you know, what to do with that kind of spotlight. And it was all so new to me and coming to me so fast. So I just said, no, I'm not do this. So my boss calls me and tells me, hey, you know, there are so many people who would like to do what you're doing, but there's something about you that we think if you actually take it seriously, it could turn out to be something something good for you. You never know, this IT degree that you're pursuing might not even give you the kind of job that you want to do. So he sat me down and really talked to me for like 3 hours, you know, and told me, stop this unseriousness of yours, because I was a typical campus girl who didn't care because I'm like, whatever, it's just any other job. You know, if I don't take it seriously, I might as well, you know. So yeah, he put me in my place and told me, so listen, this is what it's like. When you're in the limelight, it comes with challenges, but as young as you are, I can see it. Your future is brighter than you're actually looking at it right now.
Look at that kind of mentorship.
Yes,
and what
and
that
he
did.
guided me throughout. And honestly, if today's young people do not think mentorship does so much, it did for me. Because first of all, I was being trained on the job, and I had all these episodes of back and forth, you know, that if anybody wasn't patient with me, they would have said, you know what, to hell with you.
Forget you. We've got a number of women lined up outside.
Exactly.
I want to touch on something that you mentioned briefly, and that is being in the limelight. And you were pushed into it quite early on. And like you said, it wasn't something that you were chasing. It's sort of, you found yourself in the right place at the right time with the right skills. What was that like, being able to navigate the limelight at a young age, and how different is it now as an adult?
I would say if it was me alone in it, I wouldn't have done it, honestly. I probably would have had an episode where I just lose it and either get lost somewhere in the middle or be taken up by the whole attention that was coming towards me. But I was privileged to actually have people who are like, hey, this is just a little spotlight in your life. It's going to create opportunities for you. So if you do not maximize these opportunities that are coming at you while you're still young, and you get lost in the whole I'm famous kind of, you know, bubble, there's nowhere you're going to get. So I actually was always cautious of all those things, and I had to grow up real fast because my co-host on the morning show was like, he had 6 years experience in the media. So I was very cognizant of the fact that I was learning so much, but at the same time, taking advantage of the opportunities that came my way. So every time I could just say I was probably on a constant learning trajectory.
Right.
And that, in a way, kept me in check because I always knew I'm not perfect. There's someone better than you. So just have that in mind always, and it will keep you in check. So that sort of helped me,
Right.
you know, throughout the journey.
Yeah, that really speaks to me.
It kept me grounded as well.
Yeah, It really, that's really resonated with me. The idea that you are not all that and then some, and that there's always people who are better. If I'm being very honest, even this interview, like this moment right now, before we even filmed, I was like, oh, I'm about to go in and interview someone who does this for a living and has been doing it for like, you know, a decade. But the idea that there's someone better puts you in your place.
It does. And it also helps you as well to always know that you weren't the best,
right?
But you're in it, and you have to do your best.
Right. And it's a good challenge. It keeps you on your toes. So let's talk about the field of media. I remember when I was younger, and I sort of mentioned that I might be interested in media. One of the first conversations that my mom had with me was, so let me tell you what it's really like to be a woman in media, and let me warn you of some of the traps that you might find yourself in. And she painted a picture of that I've found to be true in some elements, that being a woman in this space is a little tricky to navigate. And I'm curious to know what your experience has been as a woman in media.
Well, I wouldn't say it has been perfect. It hasn't been perfect because I think when I just started out, I was the only female on the crew that used to work in the morning.
Okay.
So, you know, there are probably some challenges I would go through that probably everybody else thought, she's just acting up, you know.
Right.
And maybe sometimes I would actually feel like it was so male dominated and I'm just alone, or sometimes there are topics in the media, maybe political topics that they thought, it's not so female, so let the co-host handle this specific interview. So there were always those episodes of, oh, she's a lady, so she'll probably do the softer stuff.
Right.
He's the guy, he should take up the political stuff or the hard stuff.
Yeah.
But I think with time, when they start to get confidence in your abilities, then they start to ignore the fact that you're a lady, and maybe how you're going to bring out a certain topic is going to be different from how a male host would have brought it out. And when they realize that, they even begin to see that you're possibly at the same level or even better sometimes.
Right.
And it takes you to have like a good editor or a good producer or a good boss to actually look beyond the gender thing, and just realize that journalists are just journalists. They have equal abilities, and you need to treat them just as such.
Right. Would you say you had to work harder to prove that?
Yes. I had to work extra hard because remember, one, I was being trained on the job, and two, I came to the realization that I'm female, and so I'm not going to have it easy. So for me to actually get to that point, I need to work twice as hard.
Right.
Yeah, for me to get that kind of recognition that, oh, she can actually handle this stuff on her own. So it's never easy, but when you put in the effort, I mean, when also you make people understand that you're not just a soft head, you know, you can handle
carry
stuff.
your own.
Exactly. Yeah.
So journalism and media comes with a lot of heavy and sometimes traumatic stories, and you've got to cover things that are difficult. How have you been able to manage that and make sure that you're in a space that is healthy, mentally, spiritually, so that you're able to, you know, be the vessel and not have it consume you?
Consume you. I like that you actually use the word consume you. It does consume you quite a bit. I'm sure you're aware of one of the worst stories I've ever found myself in was what happened in Uganda in 2016, November actually of 2016. Right. And it's funny that I had gone for my traditional wedding, and then the next day I see all these things happening, like I'm watching them as they happen, and I'm like, so what am I supposed to do? You know, as like my journalist instincts just kicked in, and I'm like, let me tweet, let me write something. And then before I knew it, we were in a cell. But you know, there are things you cannot unsee, especially when you're in that phase. And it takes you time, even up to today. Probably there's some of the things that I haven't really gotten over because I cannot unsee them. Though I'm now in a space where I'm saying I'm over it, but I keep thinking about the impact it's had on people, the people who are affected by those scenes. Because there's the issue of trauma, not just from the gunshots, but from people being killed. You know, and then these are two different things. One, it takes a toll on you that there's a society that's actually living in a certain way. But as a journalist who constantly reports on such issues, you sort of become numb at some point. Because I was thinking, it's just happened to me once. What about the other journalists who have to do it over and over again? You know, who cover crime, who cover investigative stuff. It takes a toll on you, and sometimes you probably become less emotional. But for me it was traumatic, because I thought, wow, I've actually seen all of this stuff unfold in my eyes, and I couldn't do anything about it except write something about it. And then I could not tell the entire story because there's something called intimidation at the back. You know, if you go all out and say exactly what happened, then your family is intimidated. So they don't come directly at you. They possibly use the back door. They'll go to your family. So at some point I was trying to weigh between, do I say it, do I not say it? But I guess that's a challenge that a lot of African journalists face. It comes with trauma, and dealing with it, sometimes you do not know who exactly to talk to. But I was lucky that at the time, KTN did offer and say, in case you need a counselor, we are going to cater to. But then, you know, when people hear counselor and they're like, an African is trying to seek counseling, and they're like, no, we don't do that, you know, you're supposed to be hardcore and suck it in, you know. I didn't see the counselor that they actually recommended to me, but I had people who were willing to listen to me, like talk me through the whole process, how it affected me, how I was dealing with it. But I think at some point it was too much for me, because I wasn't really only going through trauma or depression because of what I had seen. There was also a lot of pressure from the state. They probably thought there's more that I had seen that I wasn't saying. So I just felt like possibly that was a good time for me to just sit back, take a break for a while, and detox, re-energize, probably take all this stuff out of me.
Wow. I mean, I can't imagine what that must have been like and how traumatic.
It was traumatizing, but it's something that I've managed to pull through. I'm curious to know, what was it like? I mean, there was, you know, there was hundreds of thousands of people who came and rallied behind you. The hashtag was trending for quite a while, hashtag free Joy Doreen. When you now, looking back, think about what that support was like, how does that feel? What does that make you think about humanity? It honestly makes me feel so good. One, for the fact that I didn't know about it, because while I was in jail, I didn't know anything was happening, like there was a hashtag trending behind my name and stuff like that. But when I got out and I saw the support, it was honestly overwhelming, because I was like, I had no idea. I had come face to face with death. And I'm like, wow, there was like millions of people who were in support of my release. It was so, I got so emotional, because I was like, there's a whole lot of good humanity in this world that sometimes we take it for granted, especially with the online community. We do not know how much their support can mean to someone who is going through something so negatively, how do I put it? Something so bad.
So difficult.
So difficult. So for me, honestly, I am so grateful to everybody who put out a tweet and just said free Joy Doreen, because it possibly mounted more of the pressure on the state to release myself and the 4 others who had been arrested with.
Possibly, definitely. I'm sure that played a huge role.
And also there was a lot of support from Kenya. Honestly, well, there was Ugandan support, but the Kenyan support also was A game.
Okay. Now, let's go back into your career. I'm curious to know, what are the guiding principles that have helped shape your career and have helped make you, Joy Doreen Bira? We were saying before how people don't just call you Joy. They don't just call you Doreen. It's Joy Doreen Bira.
Yes.
So what are those guiding principles that have made you who you are as a journalist?
Let's see. Guiding principles, hard work, and just being humble. I think one of the things that I find difficult for most people in the media is just keeping a low profile and just being humble, being approachable, having some sense of humility. Sometimes the fame can get to your head, and it can drive you nuts, because at some point you probably think, I own this little world of mine. So, but then forgetting that the same road you used on your way up is the same one you're going to use on your way down, should that happen. So for me, a lot of hard work. I've always had the belief that I'm not perfect and there's someone better. So that kept me always on my toes to try to get better, because I always knew, there's somebody out there who's probably better than me, but what am I doing about myself? And then just being humble. I like the fact that I come from humble backgrounds, and so that in itself has helped sort of keep me in the right space. And I find that a lot of people who we network with find it more approachable, find us more friendly, or even it's easy for them to give us all these interviews when we are down to earth, when we do not show them that we're these famous people that the society makes us out to be. And so it's easy for them to open up to us when we are in that space. When we come to this, just the normal level, we become relatable to people. And for me, I think that's what has worked for me.
Right. Humility and hard work. 2 guiding principles that we can all use. Now we're going to take one more break. We'll be right back with more from Joy.
media. So I just wanted to step back a bit, but also largely because of what I had gone through in 2016 of November. So I just felt it was just too much for me at the time, and I probably felt my headspace needed a bit of a break. So I just thought to take some time off. I actually first took a sabbatical before I now came back and now resigned from KTN. But the whole point of it was just to detox. Yeah, dress down a bit from all of the fatigue that I had accumulated over 10 years, and just think about what else I could do. Because I'd been doing a lot of short consultancies throughout my 10-year career. So I just thought maybe I could use this opportunity while I'm having a detox to as well sharpen my skills in something else, something that I had been growing over time, which was communications consultancies. I had been doing these for some years before, so I had an opportunity and I took it up. It was a Kenya Strategic Extractives Advisory Facility here in Kenya that was being funded by DFID and UNDP. And so they just needed a bunch of 5 advisors to help the Ministry of Mining with the extractives, that is mining.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, when they hear about mining, they're like, oh, that boring stuff. But it's actually one of the richest sectors that I have had the opportunity to work with. And Kenya, a lot of people don't know, but Kenya is rich in minerals. And I always have a feeling that young people should be able to tap into this young sector. So when the opportunity came up, I was like, why not? Let me just take it up and see. So it was a year's project, and the year has come to an end as well. So I'm possibly now thinking, well, I have all these other opportunities, and I need to figure out which one exactly I need to take up next. So it's pretty much why I took the break. I just needed a detox to re-strategize, but also sharpen my skills in something else.
Yeah, and there's something else that did happen as well. That is that you became a mom of 2.
Yes.
And I was curious to know, how different is it being a mom of 2 from just having 1 baby?
What do I call it? It's beautiful madness, actually, if you get what I'm saying. It's one thing to be a career person, and then it's another to be a mom and a career person all together. For all the moms, I'm sure someone else is saying, well, there are so many people who are doing it. Why are you making it such a big deal? But I think when you're experiencing it for the first time, it is a big deal, you know, and it's, I think, something that you take up with a lot of excitement, but it also comes with challenges. You know, when you have to travel and then you're thinking, oh, the baby is only 2 months and I have to travel and I have to work, you know, and I start thinking, wow, it actually is a task that you take on, but it's a beautiful thing. You know, when you look at these young children that you bring up all the way from scratch, you start thinking, I'm actually playing a big role in this world, you know, of bringing up a child, looking after them, taking care of them, and just watching them grow. I think it's a very beautiful thing. I read an article, or saw an article that you talked about how different it was breastfeeding one baby from the other. And it just, it caught my attention just how different it is. And you sort of go into it thinking, this is how, now that you've done it the first time, you're like, I've got this, I've got this. Second baby comes and you're like, what am I doing? Yeah, exactly. You know, with the first babies, of course, you're always overwhelmed because sometimes you probably do not have any prior experience. And in as much as you have people to guide you through it, it's always something different when you're doing it for the first time. And then the second baby comes and you're like, I'm a pro at this. I know what I'm doing. But then you start to realize, okay, I think I'm giving more time to the younger baby and less
Right.
time to the older
Oh,
baby.
yeah.
And so now you have to start figuring out
Right.
how to create
Now
time.
the challenges are different.
Yes,
It's a
and
little
then there's
different.
a husband in the
In
middle
the
of all
mix.
that, and then you're
And
like,
then there's
okay.
a career, a blooming career.
Yeah, and then they're friends.
then
They're like,
yes.
so now that you have kids, you think you do not matter in your life, you know?
Right.
you're
And then
like,
there's
"Oh, slow down."
Doreen as well that you need to
Yes.
take care of. There's just so much.
So there's too much.
Yeah, let's talk about your social media.
Yes.
And something that has stood out for me is that you've been really championing education.
Yeah.
I even saw a clip that you did, I think, for you. I'm not sure what organization it was, but I did see a clip where you were explaining how important education is for you. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, I was actually a beneficiary of a scholarship throughout my high school. And it came as a result of the fact that at some point, my dad was doing so well, he could take care of all of us, and then the next minute, he couldn't. And I was, again, privileged enough to have a scholarship. And throughout my high school, I think for about 5 years of my high school, I was on a scholarship by the Forum for African Women Educationalists, that is FAWE. I think it's headquartered here in Nairobi. And, they took me throughout my high school. And at the time I got this scholarship, I don't think there was much hope for me, education-wise. So having gone through that experience and where I am today, possibly if I hadn't been given this scholarship, I wouldn't have turned out the way I turned out today. So while my parents played a big role in laying the foundation for my education, I also think that this scholarship added on to it. And I think educating the girl child in particular is actually one thing that every parent should take very seriously, because especially in rural areas in the country, they do not really consider the girl child a priority, which is something that affects even the way the community develops. Because I think even when I had grown into my career, I went back one time, and in one of the small villages in my hometown, there were very high levels of child pregnancy, or teen pregnancy for that matter. And there's this one particular girl who, up to today, I still look at. Well, she's much grown up now, but I still look at and I'm like, she was only 12 when she conceived. And she had a baby, well, at the time I think she was about 13, and she had a baby who was about a year old. And we had gone particularly for this event that was trying to tackle the issue of child pregnancy and early marriages. And she said her parents had to give her away because they owed one of the parents in the village as well, I think about 50,000 Uganda shillings. That's very little money if you convert that into Kenya shillings. And they had to give away the goat, the only goat they had, plus the girl.
Wow.
To a 23-year-old boy who didn't have a job, didn't have an education, and on top of that, he was not working. So he only used to dig out shambas of people in the village to just get maybe 1,000 shillings, Uganda shillings. Yeah, so that story actually it took me back. I felt so much for it. And I've always asked myself, what difference can I make in the lives of girls like that? So once in a while, I've taken on girls at different stages of their lives. Even if it's just paying school fees for them for just 2 terms or just 1 year, I try to do that and try to make a difference in their lives so they can try to see the brighter side of getting a good education.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What has that taught you about you and about the world, and how would you like for it to have a bigger impact? Like, what is it something that you might be pursuing on a large scale, and if so, how can we all join in?
Well, I think there's quite a lot. First of all, I would like to say this, that when people give birth to, when a couple gives birth to children, and these children are different genders, male and female, you don't really, in today's world, you don't really consider the fact that oh, my daughter is a girl, you know, she's a girl, and then this is a boy. When you take them to school, you want them to have equal opportunities. But then higher up, when they go higher up, then there's the question of, or, you know, she's a female, so she should be doing this. He's a guy, so he should be doing this. So there are always those challenges that come up. And because, unfortunately, we live in an unequal world, in the rural areas, it's much worse.
Rampant.
Opportunities are given to the boy child and not the girl child. And we should have equal opportunities for everybody, because the boy child has as much abilities as the girl child. So that is something that's close to my heart. And I always feel like people in rural areas need a lot of awareness to know that their girl children can grow up to be very important people, you know, because, you know, educate a village and you'll actually never think about poor health. You'll never think about mortality rates, you know, and, you know, it's a better world when people are educated.
And I guess even just the fact that you're using your platform to highlight these issues, to talk about it, is a step in the right direction. Okay, so I now want to dive into a quick segment.
Okay.
Called Beat the Clock.
Okay, all right.
And the idea is to try and ask you questions to get to know you a little bit better. So you've got to answer really quick, right? So, first one. What is the first and last thing you do before you wake up and you go to bed?
Pray.
Wow. Okay, would you rather go camping or sleep in a luxury hotel?
Camping.
Really?
Anytime.
You're a camp girl?
Yes, I am. Is it a surprise?
No, I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I would.
Like luxury?
Yeah, I don't know. But given two choices, which one would you go for? Instagram or Twitter?
Twitter.
Why?
I talk less.
Okay.
So only, how many? 240 characters now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have to go all the way. And also, I'm a low profile person, so I'm not the kind who would put my whole life online. So I feel like on Twitter I'm more...
Right. What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you on TV? Or unexpected thing that's ever happened to you on TV?
I tell you what, when I had just started my career, that's why I'm telling you, it's never easy. People think, they look at you and they're like, you know, it's all good.
It's a good life, glam.
So this station that I was employed at, the TV station in Uganda, when it had just started, it was a very small station, very young, though now it has grown up to be one of the top stations there. But there was this one time, we used to have a lot of power cuts, you know, during the live shows. And this one time, power cuts, and we're like, okay, so let's just wait for the power to come back because the generator is not working. So we start talking about how long we had not been paid for. And it was like 3 months, I think it was two or 3 months.
Okay.
And we're like, so when are these guys going to pay us? And the power came back, but the screen was still black.
Oh my God. I already see where this is going, and I'm just getting uncomfortable thinking about it. Okay.
So because we used to have live call-ins on the show, so these guys are calling and they're like, you people,
no,
how have you been working for 3 months without pay?
No.
And the whole show was messed up.
You're kidding me. That is so embarrassing.
But
how
trust
did you
me.
explain that to, how did you explain that to, you know, production team,
And
managers?
they're like, you know, you people are always happy. We even think you people are paid per day. We think, oh my gosh, we didn't know that this is what you guys go through. And my co-host and I were like, what just happened?
I mean, I'm just getting hot thinking about how you had to explain that.
But guess what? This stuff happens. I mean, employers sometimes will take long to pay you.
So
but we were like, we are not even complaining. So we were even having a conversation with the producer when all of this stuff was happening. It's just that our mics were on, his was not on because he didn't have one. So yeah, that's one of the most embarrassing, but I don't regret it. You know, yeah, it happened.
Yeah.
And
it made for good television, I'm sure.
It did make for good television. Conversations about how what people go through, you know, when they're not paid for so long. And it was interesting, but it was embarrassing.
Oh,
it
man.
was so embarrassing.
Is that clip on YouTube?
No, it's not.
Really
Back then, YouTube was not such a big deal.
No, they need to find it and put it on YouTube. I'm telling you, that's going to have
I'm sure
hundreds
they even
of
threw
thousands
away
of
the
views.
tapes that they used to record that show.
I wish I could get my hands on that. Okay, last question. What is your favorite time of year, Doreen?
December.
Just why is that?
It's family time.
Yeah.
Everybody loves family time. Even if they don't like it, it's just by default, it's holiday. So you do not have a choice but to just get into the mood.
Right.
And I find that people are happy, you know, in December.
Yeah.
They're looking forward to meeting people they haven't seen in a long time, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, looking to introduce their children to their grandparents. So it's like a whole lot of good vibe
family
going on
time.
around.
It's my favorite time of the year
Yeah.
too. Doreen, this has been such an honor. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, the pleasure.
So what name do you go by on the show?
Sharon.
Sharon.
Yeah.
Wow. Pleasure.
Sharon.
Pleasure.
Nice.
Pleasure.
It was.
Yeah.
I think for me, the thing that really stood out was what you said about humility and always understanding that you are not all that and more, and having that be the grounding factor in anything that you do, whatever career path that you choose. Just knowing that you can do better and there's someone much better.
Yes,
Yeah,
and I think
what I'm taking with me.
that's for sure. Also, I don't want to leave this place without talking about God. You know, God has been so good to me.
Right.
I would say I'm here because of Him.
Yeah.
But I also want to tell people out there, young people especially, that sometimes your will to learn can determine how much you earn in future. I didn't visualize this kind of future, but it did happen. I took it seriously, and it has turned out so good for me. I'm able to do things I never thought I would do before.
Wow. Hashtag God's favorite. That's your hash. That's one of the things on your Instagram bio. Hashtag God's favorite.
That's right.
Wow. Thank you guys for watching. Please remember to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We might have some behind the scenes stuff with Doreen.
Okay.
So make sure you're following us there. For now, I would love for you guys to hear what Ted Josiah had to say about my Dawa and his experience on the app. So take a look.
Living with S.